My influencer daughter gave her dog a $300 Christmas gift, me a $10 picture frame. Then, she and my husband demanded I cancel my trip, planned 6 months ago, to make way for her scheme to gain followers. Stop making a scene, they ordered. Your plans aren't nearly as important as your daughter's. So I walked out. They figured I'd be back within the hour. They never imagined I would book an Alaskan cruise, hire an attorney, and uncover a 40-year secret that would cost them everything. Welcome, my friend. Stick with me until the end, and write what time it is on your side of the world. I like to imagine hearts all over the world sharing this quiet hour. The turkey was dry before we even sat down. Christmas dinner. I had cooked for 3 days, and my feet were swollen under the dining room table. My daughter Madison lifted her phone, the screen blazing bright. The hotel in Aspen is insane, Dad. Pure luxury. My followers are going to eat this up. My husband, Robert, boomed over. That's my girl. Only the best for the best. I watched them over the gravy boat. I had spent 40 years serving meals in this house, and for the last 1.5 years, since Madison moved back with her 2 children and her nervous little dog, Coco, I had become invisible. I was only a helper. The kids are glued to their tablets, Madison, I murmured, pointing to my grandchildren, ages 8 and 10, who were ignoring the feast I had prepared. Madison waved me away. They're fine. It's Christmas. Let them have their screen time. She refocused on Robert. The brand collaboration means the entire trip to Colorado is covered. First class. I cleared my throat. Well, speaking of trips, I'm really looking forward to mine. No one looked up. We moved to presents. My hands were still red and raw from scrubbing the roasting pan. I handed Madison her gift. It was a simple silver frame from Walgreens. Inside, I had put a picture of her and the kids from last Easter. Oh, she said. She glanced at it for half a second. Thanks, Mom. She set it face down on the rug. Robert opened his, a new biography I thought he would like. He grunted and tossed it onto the sofa. Then Madison beamed. Okay, Coco, your turn. She and Robert gave the dog a sleek black box. It was a smart Fi collar. Robert proudly announced that it cost $300. It monitors her steps, her sleep patterns, and has a GPS locator that links to Madison, he said, clasping it around the dog's neck. I need to know she's secure while I'm in Colorado. My stomach clenched. A $10 frame for me, a $300 gadget for the dog. That's lovely, dear, I said, my voice tight. But we need to discuss the dates of your Colorado trip. Madison was busy filming a video of Coco for her Instagram. What about them? You said you were leaving the day after tomorrow. December 27th, yes. It's a 10-day shoot. It's work. Madison, I said, trying to keep my voice even. My trip to Savannah is December 27th. I told you 6 months ago I booked the tickets. It's my trip with Carol. The room went silent. Even the children looked up from their tablets. Madison slowly lowered her phone. Her face, which I used to love, contorted into a mask of pure disbelief. You're joking, she said. No, I told you 6 months ago. And I reminded you last month. Carol and I have the flights. The hotel is non-refundable. You can't be serious, Mum. She rose, her voice climbing. Who is going to watch the kids? Who is going to watch Coco? I can't trust them with a stranger. I gripped the edge of the table. The wood was sticky. I assumed you or Robert would. They're your children. Robert slammed the arm of his recliner. Mary, what is this? You know Madison has a vital career opportunity. It's Savannah, Georgia, Madison shrieked, her voice brittle with contempt. It's just old buildings and moss. This is my career. This is Aspen. It's my vacation, I whispered. I am 65 years old. I retired 2 years ago. I have been taking care of your children and your dog full-time for 18 months. And you love it, Robert declared. You are a born caregiver. You always have been. I'm tired, Robert. You have to cancel, Mum, Madison ordered. Her eyes were cold, like shards of glass. It's not a discussion. You are staying here. It's your responsibility. We are family, and this is what family does. She looked to her father, who nodded in support. She's right, Mary. We support each other in this family. Your little pleasure trip can wait. You're retired. You have all the time in the world. I gasped. They weren't asking me. They were telling me. My 35 years as a librarian, my savings, my plans, meant nothing. I was just the unpaid babysitter. I looked at the congealed gravy, the stacks of dishes I would have to wash, the dog's expensive new collar, and the picture frame lying on the floor. Something inside me, something old and heavy, finally broke. I stood up. I did not say a word. Mum, what are you doing? I'm talking to you. I walked to the hall closet and pulled out my thin, old woolen coat. Mary, stop being dramatic, Robert ordered from his chair. Where are you going? Madison demanded. You can't just walk out. We're not finished with this. You better not abandon me. I grabbed my purse and car keys. The cheap metal jingled in my shaking hand. I pulled open the front door. The frigid December air hit my face and made me cry. Fine. Go. I heard Madison shriek from the dining room. You'll be back within the hour when you realize how stupid this is. You have nowhere to go. I walked out into the dark and shut the door behind me. The wipers cleared the sleet. My hands were clamped to the steering wheel, the cheap wool of my coat scratching my chin. I couldn't feel my fingers. I just drove, and the 10 miles to my mother's retirement community felt like 100. Madison was right about one thing. I had nowhere to go. I parked the old Honda Accord in the visitor lot at the Gables. It was a quiet, clean brick building, a place for people waiting to die, as Robert always called it. To me, it was the only quiet place I knew. I rang apartment 2B. My mother's voice rasped through the intercom, scratchy as a tack at 88 years old. Who is it? It's me, Mum. It's Mary. The lock buzzed instantly. Eleanor opened the door before I reached the end of the hall. She stood there, in her pressed slacks and a bright yellow cardigan, her white hair perfectly coiffed. She looked at my tear-streaked face and held the door open. Good heavens, Mary, she said dryly. You look like you've been mugged. She stepped aside. Her apartment was tiny, immaculate, and smelled of coffee and old books. She did not hug me. She just pointed to her small, flowered sofa. Sit and talk. I collapsed onto the cushion. The whole story came pouring out of me like poison. The 3 days of cooking, the tablets, the $300 dog collar versus the $10 picture frame, the confrontation, Madison's shouting about Aspen, Robert's betrayal. He told me I have all the time in the world, I sobbed, the words choking me. He said I had to stay, to watch their kids, to watch their dog. They just decided my life for me. I expected her to say, "Oh, honey, oh, that's terrible." Eleanor did neither. She went to her little kitchenette and poured 2 cups of black coffee. She handed me one. Her hand was steady. "And what did you say?" she asked. I didn't say anything. I just left. Good. That is the first intelligent thing you have done in 2 years. I looked up, stunned. Mum, they treated me like nothing. They treated you exactly as you permitted them to treat you, Eleanor said. She was sitting in her armchair, her back perfectly straight. You were Mary, the head librarian. You managed an annual budget of $400,000. You supervised 12 people. You negotiated contracts. You were respected. The day you retired, you let that woman, Madison, turn you into the agrabuela, the unpaid housekeeper. She's my daughter. They're my family. Family does not turn its 65-year-old mother into a live-in maid, Eleanor snapped. A husband does not side with a narcissistic child. Robert has been letting Madison trample you since she was a teenager. He likes it. It keeps you busy and him comfortable. Her words were brutal and true, every single one of them. They treat you like an employee, Mary, she continued, quiet and fierce. But they don't even have the decency to pay you. They steal your time, they steal your dignity, and now they want to steal the one little trip you've planned for yourself. What am I supposed to do? I whispered. Go back? Yell at them? No, you don't yell at your boss when you quit. You just leave. I stared at her. I can't leave Robert. We've been married 42 years. I was married to your father for 50 years, Eleanor said, staring me down. I loved him, but I spent 50 years folding his socks and making his dinner. I waited until he was gone to finally read the books I wanted to read. I will not sit here and watch you make the same mistake. You are not just a wife. You are not just a mother. You are Mary. She leaned forward. You were a librarian. You know how to find information. You know how to manage assets. Your retirement, did you dump it into Robert's account, or is it yours? I felt a jolt, something cold and electric. It's mine, my individual retirement account. From my 35 years at the library. He doesn't touch it. It's separate. Well, there you have it, she said, sipping her coffee. You are not their property, Mary. You are not their dependent. You are a woman with her own money. She got up and walked to her window, looking out at the Gables' quiet, manicured lawn. It's Christmas night. They are expecting you to crawl back, apologize, and cancel your trip. They are sitting in that house, warm and full, waiting for their servant to return. She turned back to me, her face softening for just a moment. You are 65 years old. You are not dead. It's time for you to live. You don't need their permission. You just need yours. I looked down at the black coffee. My hands were shaking, but no longer from the cold. It was rage, a deep, quiet, 40-year-old rage. I finished the coffee in one gulp. It was bitter and it burned all the way down. You're right, Mum, I said. I'm not their employee, and I quit. I slept on Eleanor's flowered sofa, with my coat still on. I did not dream. When the sun rose on December 26th, I did not feel rested, but I felt something I had not felt in decades. Resolution. I did not go home. I did not call. I went to my mother's bathroom, brushed my teeth with the baking soda I found in her cupboard, and walked out the door. I was at my personal bank, the one Robert was not on, the one that received my library paycheck for 35 years, before the doors even opened at 9 o'clock in the morning. I sat across from a polite young banker named Michael. I need to verify the total liquid balance of my personal IRA and my checking account, I said. My voice did not shake. He typed. The click of the keys was the only sound. He turned the monitor toward me. I looked at the number. It was a good number. It was the result of a lifetime of quiet discipline and frugality. It was the money from every lunch I had packed, every vacation I had skipped, every time I had mended a coat instead of buying a new one. It was a substantial figure, solid and beautiful, and it was all mine. My hands were steady. Thank you, Michael, that's all I need. I walked out of the bank and across the street to a Starbucks. I ordered a large, expensive latte and sat at a small table. I pulled out my phone. First, I opened the airline app. I found my reservation to Savannah. I pressed cancel flight. A pop-up warned me the fare was non-refundable. The most I could get was a $50 travel credit, expiring in 6 months. What a joke. I thought of the $300 dog collar. I pressed confirm cancellation. I let the $50 credit, the $200 flight, and the non-refundable hotel in Savannah be spent. It was the price of admission. Then I opened my browser. I did not search for Georgia hotels. I opened the Holland America Cruise Line website. I had seen their late-night infomercials, places I would never go. I searched for last-minute departures. A list popped up. 15-day Alaska exploration. Departure, Seattle, Washington. Departure date, December 27th. Tomorrow. It was crazy. It was impulsive. It was terrifying. I clicked. I looked at the options. A small inside room. Oh, a signature stateroom. With a private balcony. I thought of the $10 picture frame. I clicked the signature stateroom. I booked a first-class, one-way flight from Atlanta to Seattle, leaving in 5 hours. I entered the number of my personal credit card, the one I kept for library emergencies, and pressed confirm. The screen flashed. Thank you, Mary. Your voyage is booked. The total cost was exorbitant. My stomach flipped. It was more expensive than my first car, and it was worth every cent. Only then, sitting in my car in the Starbucks parking lot, did I call home. Robert answered on the first ring, his voice clipped and annoyed. Mary, it's about time. Are you over this tantrum yet? You need to come home. The garbage disposal is making a weird noise. I'm not coming home, Robert, I said. A pause. What did you say? Stop the nonsense now. Do you need to apologize to Madison? I cancelled my trip to Savannah. I cut him off. I heard him sigh with relief. Good. See? That's sensible. That's my girl. Now, about dinner. I booked a new trip, Robert. The line went silent. A new trip, what? To that stupid historical town next month? No, I said, looking at the confirmation email on my phone. I'm going to Alaska. For 15 days. You what? His voice was rising, that familiar bullying tone. With whose money? You are not spending our money on... With my money, I said. My retirement money. My flight to Seattle leaves in a few hours. Mary, you will not. I forbid you. Turn around and come home right now. Do you hear me? I'm warning you. I pressed the red icon on the screen. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. My hands were shaking, but I put the key in the ignition. I drove back to Eleanor's apartment, my Christmas Eve bag still in the trunk. I was going to Alaska. The taxi pulled up to the curb exactly 10 minutes later. A blue minivan. The driver, a kind-faced man, got out and reached for my oversized suitcase. I had been standing on the porch, my thin coat pulled tightly around me. I had not gone back inside. As the driver loaded my bag, the front door burst open. You are not getting into that car, Mary. Robert was on the porch, his face contorted with rage. He was still wearing his bathrobe, his hair sticking up. He looked pathetic. Madison was right behind him, filming me with her phone. Her face was tear-streaked, but her gaze was cold and calculating. She was already crafting the narrative for her followers. My selfish, horrible mother, abandoning me. Are you trying to destroy this family? Robert demanded, so loud the driver heard him. We need you here. Your grandchildren are inside. They are your grandchildren, Robert, I said. My voice sounded calm. I was surprised. I raised my child. Now it's your turn. Mum, how selfish are you? Madison shrieked, phone in hand. I have a career, a brand. This isn't a game. You're my support system. What am I supposed to do? The driver, looking uncomfortable, held open the taxi's sliding door for me. I guess you'll have to figure it out, I said, looking directly at Madison. You're 40 years old. It's time you learned how to be an adult. Oh, I added, glancing at Robert. You can finally ask your father to help. He's always been your biggest fan. You, Madison spluttered, her victim mask cracking. You old. You're nothing. You were just a librarian. You're jealous of me. That's what this is. No, dear, I said as I climbed into the cab. I'm just tired. I shut the door. Robert lunged and grabbed the handle, trying to pull it open. It was locked. He pounded on the window, his face inches from mine. His expression was no longer just anger, it was terror. The system was breaking down. His comfortable life was evaporating. Mary, don't you dare! I'm warning you, he roared, spitting onto the glass. Madison was screaming now, pure incoherent rage, still filming herself. Wow, I said to the driver. Please, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, International Terminal. The driver floored the gas. I watched my husband and daughter shrink in the rearview mirror. They were on the lawn, in bathrobes, in the dead of winter, yelling at a taxi. They looked insane. I turned my head and looked forward. No, I did not cry. I felt a deep, chilling emptiness. 42 years of marriage, 40 years of motherhood, ended on a suburban lawn with spittle on a car window. My phone vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out. A text from Robert. You will regret this for the rest of your life. A text from Madison. I hope you're happy. The children are crying. They wanted pancakes. I can't believe you did this to them. I looked at the texts. They wanted pancakes. How absurd. How petty and manipulative and cruel. I put the phone on silent. I flew first class for the first time in my life. The seat was enormous. They gave me a hot towel and a glass of champagne before we even took off. As the plane roared down the runway, lifting over Atlanta, I felt the 40-ton weight of my life dissolve. I was not a wife. I was not a mother. I was not a babysitter. I was just Mary. And I was flying to Alaska. For 3 days, I did nothing. I sat on my private balcony on the Westerdam, a Holland-America ship, and watched the grey Pacific roll by. I drank coffee that someone else brewed. I ate seafood I did not have to cook, and left aside plates I did not have to wash. I slept. I slept 10 hours every night, a deep, heavy sleep I hadn't known since before Madison was born. For the first time in my adult life, the only person I had to take care of was myself. The silence was terrifying. On the 4th day, we entered the inside passage. The water lay still as glass, and the mountains rose on both sides, their peaks capped with snow. I had left my phone off, tucked away in my purse, dead. But I needed to turn it on to check the day's ship itinerary. The moment I powered it up, it exploded. The screen froze, unable to process the sheer volume of hate trying to push its way through. 48 text messages, 19 missed calls, 12 voicemails. It was a digital bombardment, an avalanche of need and rage. I scrolled through the text previews, my stomach churning. Robert. Mary, this isn't funny. The garbage disposal is broken. What did you do to it? Madison. Coco has diarrhea. She is stressed because you abandoned her. This is your fault. Robert. I had to order pizza for the kids. I hope you're happy. Madison. I can't find the pancake mix. Where did you hide it? The kids are crying. You are ruining their Christmas vacation. Robert, your mother was incredibly rude to us. You need to call her and make her apologize immediately. Madison, I'm losing followers because I haven't posted. I'm stressed. Am I supposed to be a mother and a cook? I can't. You need to come home now. My hand was shaking. I pulled up Madison's last voicemail. Her voice, no longer the polished influencer, but a nasal shriek. Mom, Mom, answer me. The light went out in the bathroom, the GFI switch or whatever. I can't dry my hair. Robert is useless. Call the electrician. Fix this. This is a nightmare. I felt the familiar cold terror creep into my bones, a nausea in my gut. They did not miss me. They missed their servant. The machine that cooked and cleaned and fixed things had broken down, and they were furious. Just then, the ship's engines dropped to a whisper. I looked up from the screen. We had arrived. We were at Glacier Bay. It wasn't just a wall of ice. It was a mountain, a river of ice. It was the most immense thing I had ever seen, a towering cliff of ancient blue ice that glowed from within. The air coming off it was so cold it hurt to breathe. As I watched, a sound like cannon fire boomed across the water. A piece of ice the size of my house broke off the glacier and crashed into the sea. It was violent, terrifying, and beautiful. It was the sound of an ending. My phone vibrated again, hot and angry in my cold hand. A new message from Robert. Robert, I'm warning you, Mary. If you are not home by New Year's, I'm calling my attorney. You are abandoning this marriage. I looked at the text. Then I looked at the glacier. The glacier was 10,000 years old. It had carved mountains. It did not care about Robert. It did not care about pancake mix or dog collars or GFI switches. It simply was. And for the first time, so was I. I felt that same ancient ice enter my veins. I opened Robert's contact. My thumb, steady and sure, pressed the button. Block this person. A small pop-up asked for confirmation. I pressed block contact. He was gone. I opened Madison's contact. Her smug selfie smiled back at me. I pressed the button. Block this person. Block. Contact. She was gone. I powered the phone down. I did not silence it. I held the power button until the screen went black. I stood on the balcony, the Arctic wind whipping my hair. The phone was a dead, black rectangle in my hand. The glacier groaned again, a deep, powerful roar. I took a deep breath of the frigid air. It burned my lungs, but it was the first clean air I had breathed in 42 years. Robert and Madison stood in the linoleum entryway of my mother's apartment, dripping melted sleet onto her welcome mat. She won't answer her phone, Robert announced, skipping any greeting. He was trying to use his sales manager voice, the one he used to bully. We know she talked to you, Eleanor, Madison said, pacing with the zipper of her expensive parka undone. Where is she? My mother, Eleanor, told me later she just stood there for a moment, enjoying the sight of their barely contained panic. She was wearing her yellow cardigan and holding a mug of tea. Well, good afternoon to you too, Robert. Madison, I see you've mastered the art of knocking, Eleanor said, her voice icy. We don't have time for this, Eleanor, Robert snapped. Mary has run off. It's some kind of nervous breakdown. A psychotic break. A psychotic break, Eleanor repeated, nodding slowly. Or she quit. Did you consider that? People often quit when they are overworked and unappreciated. Madison scoffed. She's my mother. She can't quit. She has responsibilities. To whom? Eleanor asked, sipping her tea. To you? A 40-year-old woman who moved home with 2 children and a dog and expects her retired mother to be an unpaid babysitter? Or to you, Robert, a 67-year-old man who doesn't know how to order his own pizza? Their faces, Eleanor said, were a study in outrage and astonishment. You're out of line, Robert said, pointing his finger at her. Mary is my wife. This is a family matter. It was a family matter, Eleanor retorted, her voice hardening. It became my problem when my daughter showed up on my doorstep on Christmas night, crying because her husband and child treated her like a pack mule. Because you humiliated her over a $10 gift after she cooked for 3 days. Because you demanded she cancel her only vacation so you, she looked at Madison, could go to Colorado and leave her in charge of your dog, who apparently wears a $300 collar. Madison, for the first time, was speechless. Robert's face was red, dull, and furious. She's been manipulated, Robert tried, changing tactics. She's not like this. You did this. You put these ideas in her head. Oh, I didn't have to put anything in her head, Robert. You and your daughter did all the work. I just gave her permission to save her life. She was drowning. You were holding her head under the water and complaining she wasn't mopping the floor at the same time. Eleanor walked to the front door and threw it wide open, letting the cold hall draft rush in. Mary is fine, she said, her voice ringing with absolute authority. She is on a 15-day cruise to Alaska. She has blocked your numbers as I advised. She is taking a vacation she should have had from the two of you already. Alaska! Madison shrieked, her voice echoing in the small apartment. That's thousands of dollars. It's our money. It's family money. It is her money, Eleanor said, her voice firm. Her retirement fund, the one she earned working 35 years at the library while you, she looked at Robert, enjoyed her hot dinners, and you, she looked at Madison, were, well, doing whatever it is you do on that phone. She stood in the doorway, a small 88-year-old woman in a cardigan, holding both of them at bay. Now, get out of my apartment, Eleanor commanded. Do not come back. Do not call. Mary will call you when she is ready. And I suspect, after this performance, that won't be soon. Robert and Madison stared, utterly defeated by a force they had never considered, an old woman who was not afraid of them. They stumbled silently out into the hall. Eleanor shut the door, locked it, and, she told me, went back to finish her tea. I was in the ship's formal dining room, the Pinnacle Grill. I was wearing a simple black dress I had bought in the ship's boutique. I had just ordered the filet mignon. I was alone, and for the first time I could remember, truly happy. I had turned the phone back on, only to use the camera. I had no intention of calling anyone. But as the waiter poured me a glass of Cabernet, the screen lit up. An unknown number from an Atlanta area code. I should have ignored it. But a stupid old maternal instinct made me pick it up. Hello? Mom? It was Madison, but her voice was wrong. It was thin, fragile, and tearful. Mom, oh God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I gripped the wineglass. My heart gave a foolish, aching lurch. I've been so awful to you, she sobbed. I don't know what's wrong with me. We're so worried. Dad and I, we miss you so much. I've been a terrible daughter. It was exactly what I had always wanted to hear, and it rang completely false. What do you want, Madison? I said, my voice low. I just wanted to hear your voice, and I'm in trouble, Mum. I'm in serious trouble. There it was. The Colorado trip. The brand deal. It fell through. They say I breached the contract because I haven't been posting. And my credit card? Mum, it got declined. I can't. I can't even buy the kids food. I'm so scared. She released another wrenching sob. I'm a terrible mother. I can't even feed my children. Where is Robert? He's trying, but his money is tied up. Mum, please, I just need a loan, just to tide us over. Just $5,000. I'll pay you back, I swear. You're the only person I can turn to. I looked at the steak knife on the table. I thought about the $300 dog collar. I thought about the ice of Glacier Bay. No, Madison. The sobs ceased. Instantly. There was a cold, deathly silence on the line. What? She whispered. I said no. I will not give you $5,000. But the children need food, Mum. Are you going to let your grandchildren starve? You have a roof over your head, and Robert has a credit card, I'm sure. You'll manage. Fine, she snapped, her voice hard and altered. Fine, you old cheapskate. I don't need your permission. I'll just use the joint emergency account, the one you and Dad set up for me. I wouldn't bother, I said, taking a sip of my wine. It was excellent. I logged in from the Seattle airport. I changed all the passwords. That account is frozen. You cannot touch it. The silence that followed was a vacuum. And then, the explosion. It was a sound I had never heard. A sound of pure, undiluted animal rage. Bitch! She screamed so loudly the couple at the next table turned around. Calmly, I held the phone away from my ear and pressed record. You selfish old witch! You were always a timid, useless librarian, and you are jealous. You are jealous of me. You are jealous that I have a career. You are jealous that I'm pretty. You always have been. I held the phone steady. I was a librarian, documenting a rare and dangerous specimen. Dad was right. You're a liability. You're a liability to everyone. Do you think this is funny? Running away on a boat? I hope you fall off that stupid ship and drown. Do you hear me? I hope you die in the ocean, you miserable, selfish cow. Are you finished? I asked when she paused for breath. You're going to come back to nothing, she shrieked, ignoring me. Dad and I are going to get everything. We'll tell the judge you're insane. You'll lose it all. You'll end up in a gutter and I'll laugh. I'll laugh while you rot. You. I hung up. I saved the recording. Madison Rage 3, MP3. My steak arrived. It was cooked perfectly medium rare. I ate the entire thing. That night, I paid for the ship's premium Wi-Fi package. I opened my laptop. I did what I did best, research. I found a name, Geeta Chow, Atlanta's toughest divorce attorney. Her website read, "He thinks you're weak. Let's prove him wrong." I drafted an email. Subject, consultation request, 42-year marriage, financial abuse. Dear Ms. Chow, my name is Mary Thompson. I am 65 years old and on an Alaskan cruise. I am writing to you today because I have decided to divorce my husband, Robert Thompson. I believe he has been emotionally and financially abusing me for years. My 40-year-old daughter is his accomplice. I am attaching a recent audio file as an example of the situation I am facing. I will be returning to Atlanta in 10 days. I would like to schedule the first available appointment upon my return. Sincerely, Mary Thompson. I attached the file, MP3, and I pressed send. Geeta Chow's office was on the 30th floor of a steel and glass tower in Midtown Atlanta. It was the kind of building where it costs money just to breathe. Geeta was in her 50s, wearing a sleek navy suit, and she radiated an energy I had not seen in years, pure, undiluted competence. She was not sentimental. She was a surgeon. I have reviewed your initial email, Mary, Geeta said, her voice crisp. And I have listened to the audio. Your daughter is impressive. I sat across from her, my back straight. I was wearing my best grey suit, the one I used for library budget meetings. She's well. As for your husband, Robert, Geeta said, opening a file. He was served this morning. He is not pleased. His attorney, a man I know well and detest, has already filed a counterclaim. A counterclaim? Why? He's filing for divorce based on abandonment, and he is claiming 60% of all marital assets, including 50% of your retirement IRA. The blood drained from my face. He can't. That's my money. I earned that. He argues that your 35 years of work were supplementary income for the family, Geeta explained, her expression grim. He claims his income as a sales manager was the primary source, and your retirement is a marital asset to be split. Furthermore, he claims that because you abandoned him, he is entitled to punitive damages. He abandoned me, I stammered. He and Madison, they threw me out. I know, he knows. But the law, Mary, is based on what we can prove. He will paint you as an unstable, hysterical woman who ran off on a whim. She, Geeta tapped the file, will be his star witness, a loving, distressed daughter worried about her mother's mental state. I looked out the window at the Atlanta skyline. For a moment, I felt the same icy fear as always. They were going to take everything. They were going to paint me as crazy and leave me with nothing. He's a liar, I whispered. Most of them are, Geeta said without blinking. Which is why we have to be smarter. He thinks you're a timid librarian. He thinks you spent 35 years shelving books. He is underestimating you. I need you to be a librarian, Mary. The best librarian this state has ever had. What do you mean? I want you to go home, to the house you shared for 42 years, and do the most exhaustive research of your life. I want every bank statement, every credit card bill, every tax return, every mortgage document, every car payment, for 42 years. He thinks he's hidden his money. He thinks he's erased his tracks. He forgot who he was married to. She leaned across the desk. You didn't just file the books, did you, Mary? A small, cold smile touched my lips. I was the head librarian. I managed the acquisitions budget, oversaw the digital transition, and ran the forensic genealogy department. I know how to find things people don't want found. Good, Geeta said, a similar smile on her face. Go to work. Find me the trail. He left one. They always do. I returned to the house. It was empty. Robert and Madison had apparently moved to a hotel, not wanting to be home when I returned. The place was a wreck. Piles of dishes, overflowing laundry, pizza boxes stacked on the dining room table. The $300 dog collar was on the kitchen counter, chewed up and broken. They had left in a hurry. I did not clean. I stepped over the mess and went straight to Robert's home office. He had locked the filing cabinets. It was a flimsy, cheap lock. I went to the garage, got a screwdriver, and pried the drawer open in less than a minute. Inside, files, decades of them. I spent the next 2 weeks in that office. I did not sleep. I survived on coffee and toast. I cross-referenced credit card statements with bank withdrawals. I compared his declared salary on our joint tax returns to his commission stubs, which he had stupidly left in a desk drawer. I created a spreadsheet, a massive, color-coded ledger of our entire financial life. On the 14th day, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I found it. It wasn't a large, obvious discrepancy. It was a pattern. Small, regular payments every quarter for 15 years. Labeled ZM consulting fees. They went to a limited liability company I had never heard of. But the payments stopped going to the LLC 5 years ago, and they started going somewhere else. A wire transfer. A single wire transfer, once a quarter, to a bank I did not recognize. I Google searched the routing number. It was not a United States bank. It was Credit Corp Bank, Panama. I kept digging. I went to the attic, to the old file boxes he thought were lost, and I found the LLC incorporation documents. ZM Consulting. The address listed was not an office, it was a P.O. box. I kept searching. I found an old travel itinerary from a sales conference 6 years ago. It wasn't Chicago, it was Panama City. And then, in the very back of his desk drawer, taped underneath, I found a single key. It was not a house key. It was a small silver key, the kind used for safe deposit boxes. There was a small paper tag attached. On it, written in Robert's precise, arrogant handwriting, were two things: a number and a name. Ms. Rojas. I didn't know who Ms. Rojas was, but one thing I did know: I had him. Gator Chow was not just an attorney, she was a hunter. She looked at the key and the name M. Rojas and smiled. Maria Rojas, Gita said, typing on her computer. His executive assistant for the last 12 years, the one who retired 3 months before he did. It's almost insulting how unoriginal he is. ZM Consulting, I whispered, as the pieces clicked into place. Robert and Maria. Exactly. A textbook Delaware shell corporation. He's been taking vendor kickbacks for years, consulting fees. He approves an inflated invoice, the vendor pays the kickback to the shell company, and he pockets the difference. Simple, straightforward fraud. But the bank in Panama? That's Act 2, Gita said, her eyes alight. He got nervous. Maybe Maria got nervous. 5 years ago, they started wiring the money overseas. A joint account in a country with strict bank secrecy laws. He thought he was a genius. He thought he was smarter than everyone, especially his timid librarian wife. She picked up the phone. We file an emergency ex parte motion. We allege immediate risk of flight of assets and tax fraud. We are not just going for the divorce assets, Mary. We are going to freeze that Panamanian account, and we are going to get a court order to open that safe deposit box. He won't even know until it's done. 2 days later, I stood in the cold, sterile vault chamber of an external safe deposit company. It was Gator, a court-appointed forensic auditor, and a bank manager. Robert had been court-ordered to be there. He walked in, flanked by his attorney. When he saw me, his face, which had been arrogant and dismissive, turned a sickly grey-white. He looked at the auditor, at the key in the manager's hand, and he knew. You had no right, he whispered to me, his voice shaking. I had every right, I said, meeting his eyes. The manager turned the key. He pulled out a long, thin metal box. He placed it on the table. The auditor, in white gloves, opened it. Inside, there were no gold bars. It was just paper. But that paper was everything. The auditor, in a flat, monotone voice, began to inventory the contents. 1. Original incorporation documents for ZM Consulting, LLC. 2. A key fob for a condominium. Address, the Ocean Club, Panama City, Panama. 3. A deed, jointly titled in the names of Robert Thompson and Maria Rojas. 4. A printed ledger for Credit Corp Bank, Panama. Current balance? The auditor paused, adjusting his glasses. $1,472,000. Robert's attorney made a small, sick sound. And 5, the auditor said, pulling out the final document. A formal, notarized will, dated 6 months ago, superseding all prior wills. In this document, Mr. Thompson leaves 75% of his personal assets and the contents of the Panama account to Ms. Maria Rojas, citing love and companionship. My 42 years of marriage, my 40 years of service, my children, all erased. He was going to feign my abandonment, give me a pittance, and run off to Panama with his mistress and our money. Robert was leaning against the wall. He was no longer arrogant. He was just a grey, old man in an expensive, rumpled suit. He looked at me with wide eyes, a desperate, pathetic plea. He was begging me. He was begging me to be the old Mary, the one who fixed things, the one who forgave. I thought of the cold night I drove away. I thought of the $300 dog collar. I thought of the words, "I hope you drown." I looked at Geeta. "I believe we have everything we need," I said. "You can send copies of this to the Internal Revenue Service and to the district attorney." Robert slid down the wall and sat heavily on the floor. The courtroom was silent, the air heavy with the smell of old wood and floor wax. I sat next to Geeta, my hands folded on the table. Robert sat across from us. He had lost weight. His expensive suit hung on him, and his skin was the color of ash. He would not look at me. Madison was not there. Her attorney had advised against it. Robert's lawyer blustered for an hour. He used the words abandonment and emotional instability. He tried to paint me as a hysterical woman who had been unduly influenced by a meddling mother. He argued that the Panama account was a private, extramarital business venture that bore no relationship to the divorce. He finished by demanding the court enforce the 50-50 division of all assets, including my IRA, as was standard in the state of Georgia. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, looked at Geeta. "Ms. Chow, your response?" Geeta stood. She carried a stack of binders. "Your Honor," Geeta began, her voice quiet and clear. "First, we would like to address the claim that my client, Mrs. Thompson, did not contribute equitably to this marriage." She placed the first binder on the judge's bench. "For 42 years, my client performed the duties of domestic administrator, chef, bookkeeper, chauffeur, and full-time unpaid childcare provider. This while simultaneously maintaining a 35-year career as a librarian. We have taken the liberty of itemizing these domestic labors, cross-referenced by year, using standard market rates for such services." She flipped a page on an easel for the court to see. It was a massive spreadsheet. By conservative estimates, Mary's unpaid contribution to this household, which directly facilitated Mr. Thompson's career, has an economic value of $2.2 million. Robert's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! That is ridiculous. You cannot monetize a marriage." The judge looked at him over her glasses. "She can, and she has. Sit down, counsel." Geeta continued. "Mr. Thompson has alleged his wife's IRA account is a marital asset. We argue that her IRA, generated entirely by her own labor, is the only payment she has received for her 42 years of work. His claim is, to put it mildly, unconscionable." Then she picked up the second binder. This one was thinner, bound in black. "Now, let us address Mr. Thompson's private enterprise." This was not a spreadsheet. It was the evidence from the safe deposit box. Geeta did not need to editorialize. She simply laid out the facts. "We have here the incorporation documents for ZM Consulting, a shell company. We have bank statements from Credit Corp Bank in Panama proving a hidden account, titled in one person's name, holding $1.47 million generated from kickbacks. We have the deed to a condominium in Panama City, also titled in one person's name. And finally," Geeta said, lowering her voice, "we have Mr. Thompson's current will, leaving 75% of these stolen assets to his mistress, Miss Maria Rojas, thereby attempting to defraud his wife of her share not only in life, but after his death." A wave of murmuring swept the courtroom. Robert had slumped so low in his chair he was barely visible. The judge stared at Robert for a long minute of silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was clipped with rage. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, "in my 20 years on this bench, I have rarely seen a case of financial fraud so calculated, malicious, and arrogant perpetrated by one spouse against another. You did not merely cheat on your wife. You systematically stole from her. You treated her as an unpaid servant while building a secret life on her dime." She looked at me. "Mrs. Thompson, your diligence in preparing these documents is a credit to your profession." She looked back at Robert. "This court finds you guilty of egregious financial misconduct and dissipation of marital assets. I therefore rule as follows." My heart was thumping against my ribs. 1. Mrs. Thompson's retirement IRA account is her sole property. It will not be touched. 2. The entire contents of the Credit Corp bank account and the condominium in Panama are hereby awarded in full to Mrs. Thompson as punitive compensation. 3. The family home is to be sold immediately. 4. Of all remaining legally declared marital assets, Mrs. Thompson is awarded 70%. You will receive 30%. 5. You will pay all of Mrs. Thompson's legal fees. The gavel cracked. It sounded like a gunshot. "Court is adjourned. And Mr. Thompson," the judge added, "I advise you to retain a criminal defense attorney. The Internal Revenue Service and the Fulton County District Attorney will be receiving copies of these findings this afternoon." I stood up. My legs were shaking. I did not look at Robert. I did not need to. He was no longer my problem. I had my ledger, and the scales were finally balanced. I walked out of the courtroom with my head held high, and I did not look back. My new apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, in a quiet complex in Decatur, 30 minutes from my old life. It was mine. The lease was in my name. The furniture, a comfortable sofa, a solid wood bookshelf, a bed I did not have to share, were all new. I unpacked my books first. They were my old friends. As I shelved them, I felt order return to my life for the first time. The house sold quickly at judicial auction. The attorneys handled everything. I never had to see Robert again. The contents of the Panama account, after the international legal and banking fees, were now in my private bank account. It was enough. I would never be rich, but I would be safe. I would be free. 2 weeks after moving in, I drove to the local public library. It was a beautiful brick building, smaller than my old branch, but it smelled the same, of paper, dust, and quiet potential. I found the branch manager, a young woman named Keisha. "I'm Mary Thompson," I said, extending my hand. "I was the head librarian for the Fulton County system for 35 years. I'm newly retired, and I was wondering if you needed volunteers." Keisha's eyes went wide. "Wait, Mary Thompson, the one who ran the digital archive project?" "Yes, of course. Yes, we would." That afternoon, I sat in a quiet corner, repairing the bindings of old books. The meticulous, methodical work comforted my soul. The glue on my fingers, the smell of old paper, the soft murmur of readers. This was my world. This was my place. I was cataloguing a new donation of local history books when my phone vibrated. It was a number I did not recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text message popped up. "Mum, it's me. Madison. I'm using a friend's phone. Please, I just want to talk. I heard what happened at the courthouse. He's in serious trouble." I stared at the message. I felt nothing. No rage, no pity. Just a deep, quiet emptiness. The rage had burned itself out. I typed a response. My hands were steady. "Madison, I got your message. I am not ready to talk to you. I am rebuilding my life and I need time and space. Please do not contact me again until I contact you. I sent it. And then I blocked that number too. A few minutes later, Keisha brought me a cup of tea. Long day? She asked, smiling. You have no idea, I said. We sat and talked about her plans for a new adult literacy program. I offered a few suggestions from my old budget proposals. She listened, taking notes. I felt a familiar, long-lost feeling. It was respect. That night, I went back to my apartment, quiet and clean. I ate a simple dinner of soup and bread. I opened my laptop. I did not check my finances. I did not read the news. I opened a web browser. I typed 10-day Tuscany tours. I found a tour, the art and vineyards of Italy, departing in May. I looked at the itinerary, Florence, Siena, and small hillside towns. I clicked Book Now. I paid in full. I was not a wife. I was not a babysitter. I was Mary. And I was going to Italy. It was May. The suffocating Georgian summer humidity had not yet arrived, just heat, light, and green. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and jasmine. My flight to Florence left in 3 days. I drove to the Gables, but I did not go to apartment 2B. I walked around the back to the community gardens. She was there. Eleanor, my 88-year-old mother, was on her knees, in a wide-brimmed straw hat, wrestling with a stubborn weed. I walked up the gravel path and knelt in the dirt beside her. For a few minutes we simply worked, pulling out the invaders in companionable silence. Your hands look better, she said without looking up. I looked at my palms. They were not red and raw from scrubbing frying pans. They were just stained with clean, dark earth. I've been volunteering at the Decatur Library, I said, repairing old bindings. Good, she said, pulling out a long route. Such useful work. My apartment is all set, I told her. The new bookshelves are full. I'm leaving for Italy on Thursday. At this, she finally stopped. She sat back on her heels and looked at me, her eyes still hawk-like and piercing, observing me. She observed my simple linen pants, my new haircut, the quiet in my face. Good, she repeated, but this time her voice was different, softer. Thank you, Mum, I whispered, for waking me up. Eleanor snorted. She pointed to the empty, freshly weeded plot in front of us. You woke yourself up, Mary. I just told you the time. She reached for a small plastic tray and picked up a tiny seedling. It was a rose, barely 6 inches tall, with sharp thorns and a small, promising green leaf. My back hurts, she said, offering me the plant. Plant this one for me. I took the seedling. I plunged my fingers into the rich, damp soil, creating a small, perfect hole. The earth felt cool and alive, a sharp contrast to the sterile, cold ice of Alaska. This was not an ending. This was a beginning. I carefully placed the young rosebush in the hole. Starting over is hard, Eleanor said quietly, as she watched me tamp the dirt around the fragile stem. There's a lot of digging, a lot of weeding. It's going to hurt. She placed her gloved hand on my shoulder. But it's good work. You spent 40 years tending to other people's messes, Mary. It's time you learned. Your own garden, she said, her voice firm and filled with a love more powerful than any easy comfort. You have to plant that yourself. I pressed the remaining soil around the rose. I stood up and brushed the dirt from my hands. I looked at the little plant, standing tall and proud in the fresh, dark earth. The sun felt warm on my face. I was not cold. I was not invisible. I was no one's servant. I was Mary, and I was planting my garden.